Joining us now is Lilit Gevorgyan, the Russian analyst at IHS Global Insight. Lilit, good morning. So the only real phase 3 sector sanction I see here is the defence sector with a carve-out for the French Mistrals. How impactful overall are these going to be?
I don't think it will be great, to be honest. Partially because of the Soviet legacy, Russia has never really ventured out and became a major importer of arms. It has been self-reliant, and only in the past 2 years it's been sort of active trying to bring in know-how from the West. And as you said, when it comes to the French deal, it's not going to be affected anyway. So I don't think that when it comes to purely military imports that Russia will suffer. However, if we're talking about the dual-use goods, meaning goods that are used for civilian and military purposes, in this case probably Russia, particularly Russian industry, could feel the pinch. And this
Are we yet? Or we don't know yet? We don't know the details. We're not talking about dual use yet.
I think that it has been discussed,
Right.
so we have to see whether this is finalised or not.
When it comes out tomorrow. Okay, so let's talk about the capital markets. Who's going to have the most impact here? Because my read across on this, and Yannick, we were talking about this earlier and we kind of agree, is that actually when I was in Brussels talking about the beginning of sanctions, we said that, look, this is what's going to happen. The European countries are going to find a way to press Russia, but equally balance the impact. And my take from what we've done up to now is actually that the most painful impact is going to be felt by the UK economy.
Well, I think we have to really look at the statistics that is, for example, provided by Bank of International Settlements, which suggests that actually it's the French and Italian banks that could feel the pinch because they've been lending to Russian corporate and financial institutions far more than London. Having said that, I think those banks, the Western banks that have been cooperating with Russian entities quite closely in the past decade or so, they will feel the pinch because this is a two-way street. The Russians will suffer, so will their Western partners.
Even if we push these sanctions to Iran-style sanctions on the Russian economy, do you believe that Putin would back down?
I don't think at the moment the Russian president can do that because he's really in a very difficult position. If you look at
he's put himself in a really difficult position, let's be fair.
That is the reality. If the sanctions are imposed to see an immediate U-turn, I don't think it will work. Perhaps in 3 months' time when this situation de-escalates a little bit. But whilst there are reports of civilians dying in eastern Ukraine, and whilst the Russian population is against the US and EU sanctions and really blames the West and not the Russian president, the president doesn't really have much room to maneuver.
Yannick, come in here.
Well, I mean, the popularity of Mr. Putin is above 80%. If you read the media, in the Russian media, the story, the global story is reported very differently compared to Western media. It will be very difficult for Vladimir Putin right now to lose face and to completely change direction, just because he has popular support in his country and is completely controlling the media that are telling a story that have nothing to do with the fact reported in a Western country. So all in all, I think it will be difficult for Vladimir Putin to change right now, but you know, we will see slowly the impact on Russian economy, and you have to expect that people around him, whatever it's the people with business interest, will tell him that those sanctions have an impact.
Great point. There was a talk in the German press earlier this week that actually the oligarchs are under pressure here, and actually in response they're putting Putin under pressure and saying, you know, what's going on here? What are you hearing on that front? Are some of these key business people, the oligarchs in Russia now, turning around to Putin and going, okay, we need to think about this again?
But so far, there hasn't been really any public statement by any of the oligarchs. Partially because they know how unpopular it will be, you know, to put forward their interest, their business interest.
Terminal.
Exactly. And I just want to highlight also that it is in Russia's national interest to have good relations with West, and it's in Putin's interest to have good relations with West ultimately, because Putin stayed in power because of the economic achievements, and this was partially because he was integrating the country into the world economy. But at the moment, as I said, he's caught in a situation where there's a strong nationalistic sentiment domestically, and even if the sanctions hurt, he doesn't really have that much room to make a U-turn at the moment, not now.
It's interesting, isn't it? I guess we just have to see how these work through. I think the reaction in the markets today, the MySEX higher by 2%, tells a great deal about the concern that was potentially out there and actually what we've come up with here.
Well, I think there's a bit of complacency because until today, it's true that sanction after sanction, the impact was quite small. But if you look at the fine print of the sanctions yesterday and today, I think there will be a significant impact for most of corporations in Russia that are really depending on foreign funding, as well as banks that will be now shut down. And you have to keep in mind that if you are a foreign company operating in Russia, like a subsidiary of Renault or a subsidiary, exactly, will you keep your bank account money? And will you keep your bank account in Sberbank or Gazprom Bank or VTB? I don't think so.
Great. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Lilit Gevorgyan, the Russian analyst at IHS Global Insight. Yannick, also great to have you on the show this morning. Thank you, Yannick Naud, Portfolio Manager at Stoja Capital.